The sleek observation deck aboard the UNS Horizon fell silent as Admiral Park Ji-ho studied the unusual energy signatures near Jupiter's orbit. His second-in-command, Lieutenant Kim Da-won, confirmed what their instruments had detected. An artificial construct of non-human origin had entered the solar system. "Send the first contact protocols," ordered Admiral Park, his voice steady despite the historic gravity of the moment. Within hours, a vessel of remarkable design approached Earth's orbital defense perimeter. From it emerged Ambassador Teller of the Vexillian species, the appointed representative of something called the Galactic Council. In the United Nations Assembly Hall, Secretary-General Lee Hyun-soo received the alien diplomat. The meeting began cordially but quickly soured when Ambassador Teller outlined the Council's expectations. "Humanity will be classified as a Tier 3 civilization," Teller announced. "This requires resource tributes of 20% of your planetary output and restrictions on further technological development." Secretary Lee's expression hardened. "Humans do not accept classification systems that presume our inferiority. We will join as equals or not at all." Ambassador Teller's 4 eyes blinked in rapid succession, a clear sign of distress. No species has ever rejected Council classification. "This is unprecedented." Teller's purple skin darkened as he composed himself. "Perhaps I have not made the benefits clear. The Council offers protection, trade routes, and access to certain technologies. At the cost of our freedom and resources," Admiral Park said, stepping forward. "What gives the Council the right to demand tribute from a sovereign species?" The room grew tense. Delegates from Earth's nations whispered among themselves. Some seemed ready to consider the offer, fearing the alternative. "The Council has existed for 12,000 years, Teller explained. 273 species live under our governance. The system works. It brings order to chaos." Secretary Lee stood tall. "We have studied your vessel, your weapons. We are not as primitive as you believe." Teller waved a 3-fingered hand dismissively. "All new species overestimate their importance. The Araxians once stood where you stand now. They learned their place, as will you." Admiral Park's jaw tightened. "Is that a threat, Ambassador?" "Merely history," Teller replied. "The Council does not threaten. It simply is." During a brief recess, Earth's Security Council gathered in a side chamber. Screens displayed data about the alien ship hovering above the Atlantic Ocean. "Their hull is unlike anything we've seen," said Dr. Han Mei-young, Earth's leading physicist. "But their communication systems show vulnerabilities. They rely heavily on quantum entanglement principles we've been experimenting with." Admiral Park nodded. "So they're advanced, but not gods." Secretary Lee paced the room. "The question remains, do we submit or resist?" "They want 20% of everything," said Economic Minister Choi Jun-ho. "Our minerals, water, biological materials. That would collapse global markets. And the technology restrictions," Dr. Han added. "We would be frozen in place while they continue to advance." Back in the main hall, Secretary Lee faced Ambassador Teller with renewed purpose. Behind him stood representatives from every nation on Earth. "We have a counterproposal," Lee said. "Earth will join your council as a peer member with full voting rights. We will engage in fair trade, not tribute. We will share knowledge, not surrender it." Teller's 4 eyes narrowed. "Impossible. New species must earn their position over centuries." "Then perhaps the Council needs to evolve," Admiral Park suggested. "Times change, even for 12,000-year-old institutions." Teller's translator device emitted a series of clicks as he spoke in his native tongue, seemingly to himself. When he addressed the humans again, his voice carried a colder tone. "The Council predicted an 89% chance you would accept our terms. Your defiance is troubling." "We don't make decisions based on probabilities," Secretary Lee said firmly. "We make them based on principles." Teller turned to leave. "I will report your response to the full Council. They will not be pleased." "Wait," called Admiral Park. "Before you go, Know that humans have never united so quickly as we have today. Your arrival has done what centuries of our own history could not." Teller paused at the door. "Is that meant to impress me?" "No," Park replied. "It's meant to warn you. We may be young in galactic terms, but we learn fast, and we don't surrender easily." As Teller's ship departed Earth's atmosphere, the planet below buzzed with activity. Defense systems were upgraded. Scientists worked around the clock studying the alien technology they had scanned. In orbit, Admiral Park watched the alien vessel disappear toward Jupiter. "Do you think they'll return with peaceful intentions?" Lieutenant Kim asked. Park's eyes remained fixed on the stars. "I doubt it, but next time, we'll be ready." On the Vexillian ship, Ambassador Teller composed his report to the Council. For the first time in his long career, he included a personal note at the end. "These humans are unlike any species we have encountered. They lack the proper fear. They question what should not be questioned. Most troubling of all, they may inspire others to do the same." The great chamber of the Galactic Council buzzed with agitation. Representatives from over 200 species debated the unprecedented human response to their standard integration protocols. High Counselor Moore of the Korath species pounded his ceremonial staff. "These humans must be made to understand their place in the galactic order." The Vexillian delegation recommended patience, while the militant Araxians called for an immediate show of force. After 3 days of heated debate, the Council reached a decision. Back on Earth, Secretary Lee and Admiral Park received the Council's ultimatum: accept classification or face complete galactic isolation and economic sanctions. In response, Dr. Song Minwoo, Earth's leading quantum physicist, accelerated his work on a revolutionary FTL communication system. While analyzing captured Council technology, he discovered a critical vulnerability in their network. Their entire communication infrastructure depends on a standardized quantum frequency, Dr. Song reported to the Security Council. They never anticipated someone would operate outside their system. Meanwhile, representatives from several smaller galactic species made discreet contact with humanity. "Your defiance gives us hope," confided Delegate Pell of the Nithran Alliance. "Many of us have suffered under Council hierarchies for centuries." The ultimatum from the Galactic Council arrived in a crystal data cube. When activated, it projected a 3-dimensional image of High Counselor Moore. His scaled skin shimmered in the light as he spoke. "People of Earth," Moore began, "your rejection of Council classification is unacceptable. You have 30 Earth days to reconsider. Should you persist in your defiance, all paths to galactic trade, knowledge, and protection will be closed to you." Secretary Lee watched the message replay 3 times before calling an emergency meeting. Leaders from all nations gathered virtually as Admiral Park presented their options. "We can submit," Park said, his voice flat, "or we can prepare for isolation." "Is there a third option?" asked the representative from Brazil. Dr. Song stepped forward. His hands trembled slightly, but his voice was steady. "I believe there is." In his laboratory beneath the Korean peninsula, Dr. Song had been studying the communication device from Teller's ship. Day and night, he worked with a team of physicists from around the world. "Look here," he said, pointing to a display showing wave patterns. "All Council communications use this specific quantum signature. It's like they all speak one language, with no concept that other languages exist." "Can we listen to their communications?" Secretary Lee asked. "Better," Dr. Song smiled. "We can speak outside their language. They won't even know we're talking." While Earth prepared its response, the chambers of the Galactic Council continued to seethe with discord. Ambassador Teller faced harsh criticism from the Araxian delegation. "Your soft approach has emboldened these primitives," growled General Kraft of the Araxians. His metallic exoskeleton clicked as he moved. "We should send a battle fleet now." "And risk damaging a resource-rich world," countered Teller. "The humans will yield. All species eventually do." High Counselor Moore silenced them both with a wave of his staff. "The ultimatum has been delivered. We will wait the allotted time." But not all council members shared the leadership's confidence. In shadowy corners of the massive space station that housed the council, whispers spread. The humans refused classification, murmured a small Peltari diplomat to his Nithran counterpart. No one has done that in 8,000 cycles. Perhaps it is time someone did, replied the Nithran. These whispers reached Earth through surprising channels. Using council transportation logs, Admiral Park's intelligence team identified ships making unusual detours near Earth's solar system. When a small Nithran trading vessel requested permission to dock at Luna Station, Admiral Park personally greeted its occupant. Delegate Pell was small by human standards, barely reaching Park's chest. His translucent skin revealed the outline of two hearts beating within. "I come unofficial," Pell said in broken human language. "Many systems watch Earth now. Your stand against Council gives hope." "Hope for what?" Park asked. "Change," Pell replied. "Council keeps Nithran as Tier 4 for 600 years. We discover new element. They take it. We create new medicine. They claim it. Always we stay Tier 4. Over the next 2 weeks, 5 more representatives from different species made similar clandestine visits. Each shared stories of technological appropriation, resource extraction, and systematic suppression. Secretary Lee called Dr. Song to her office after the 5th such visit. "How soon can your alternative communication system be ready?" she asked. 2 weeks for basic function," he replied. "But I found something else." He placed a small device on her desk. "This is a portable scanner." It revealed that all council technology carries a backdoor access point. "I believe it's how they maintain control over technologies they distribute to lower-tier species." Lee picked up the device. "Can we use this?" Dr. Song nodded. "We already are." On the 29th day of the ultimatum, Secretary Lee addressed the United Nations. Representatives from every nation listened as she outlined Earth's response to the Council. "We will not submit to classification," she declared. "We will not surrender our resources or limit our development. But neither will we stand alone." The screens behind her lit up with faces of beings from a dozen different species, the representatives who had secretly contacted Earth. "Together with these allies, we are forming a new network, one built on equality, not hierarchy, on cooperation, not submission." As Secretary Lee spoke, Dr. Song activated his quantum communication array. For the first time, signals that the Council could not detect spread across the galaxy, carrying Earth's message of defiance, and offering an alternative to Council rule. In his private chamber, High Counselor Moore received urgent news. Tier 4 species were failing to report for resource collection. Tier 5 worlds had gone silent. Something was happening. Something unprecedented in 12,000 years of Council history. "Find the source," he commanded, but his advisors could only shake their heads in confusion. They couldn't detect any unauthorized communications. As far as their systems showed, the galaxy was operating normally. But it wasn't. A revolution had begun, sparked by human defiance, and spreading through channels the Council had never imagined could exist. Captain Kang Hee-jung guided her diplomatic vessel through the contested border regions of the Peltari cluster. Her mission, codenamed Operation Lighthouse, aimed to build a coalition of species dissatisfied with Council rule. "The Council has kept your civilization at Tier 4 for 3 centuries, Captain Kang told the Peltari leadership. "Yet we've seen your theoretical physics papers. Your people deserve better." Similar conversations occurred throughout the galaxy as humans freely shared technological innovations with potential allies, deliberately undermining the Council's carefully maintained hierarchy of knowledge. The Araxian Empire, the Council's military enforcer, grew increasingly agitated. Commander Rax demanded permission to discipline the human upstarts, but was restrained by Council protocols requiring unanimous approval for military action. Earth's scientific community, free from Council restrictions, unveiled a propulsion system that defied conventional theory. When images of the prototype vessel reached the Council chambers, panic ensued. They've achieved in months what took us centuries, whispered high technologist Frill to his Korath colleagues. The situation worsened when internal council documents leaked to several member worlds, revealing long-term plans to eventually strip mine Earth for its rare minerals and biological diversity. Captain Kang felt her heart race as her ship, the UNS Pathfinder, approached the hidden Pelteri homeworld. The small vessel had avoided 3 Araxian patrols by using the new stealth technology developed by Dr. Song. "We're being scanned," reported Navigator Yoon. His fingers danced across the control panel. "Let them scan," Captain Kang replied calmly. "Our credentials are in order." The Pelteri were known for their caution. Their world had been classified as Tier 4 for 300 years, despite their brilliant advances in theoretical physics. The Council restricted their development by limiting access to critical materials and equipment. As the Pathfinder landed on the floating platform above the crystalline Pelteri city, Captain Kang prepared the gift Earth had brought: unrestricted access to human scientific databases and prototype quantum computers. "Welcome, human friends," said Chief Scientist Mora of the Pelteri. Unlike many species, the Pelteri resembled tall, slender humans with silvery skin that reflected light like mirrors. "We must speak quickly. Council observers visit our system regularly." Inside the secure meeting chamber, Captain Kang activated a small device that created a bubble of privacy, another invention from Dr. Song's team. "The Council can't hear us now," she explained. "We bring gifts and a proposal." Captain Kang showed them the quantum computer. Chief Scientist Mora's eyes widened at the sight. "The Council told us humans were primitive," Mora whispered. "They lied," Captain Kang said simply. "They lie to all of us. Your work on dimensional physics is decades ahead of what the Council claims. We've read your papers." "How?" "Those papers are restricted by Council order." Captain Kang smiled. "The Council's communication network isn't as secure as they believe." For 3 hours, they talked. The Pelteri learned that Earth had rejected classification and was building a network of allies. Captain Kang learned that the Pelteri had secretly developed technologies the Council had forbidden. "If we work together," she proposed, "we can break free from Council restrictions." When the Pathfinder left the Pelteri world, it carried precious cargo: detailed plans for gravity manipulation technology that the Council had suppressed for centuries. Similar scenes played out across the galaxy. The UNS Meridian visited the gas giants of the Yun system. The UNS Venture made contact with the aquatic Luth species. Each human ship brought knowledge freely given and returned with new allies and technologies. On Earth, these new technologies were rapidly integrated into human science. Without Council restrictions, progress accelerated at a pace that shocked even the humans themselves. In a sprawling research facility in Antarctica, Dr. Song unveiled the prototype of a new propulsion system. By combining Pelteri gravity manipulation with Luth phase technology, we've created an engine that can reach speeds the Council claimed were impossible, he explained to Secretary Lee and Admiral Park. "How quickly can we deploy this?" Admiral Park asked. "The first vessels can be upgraded within 3 months," Dr. Song replied. While Earth and its growing alliance developed in secret, the Council remained unaware of the full extent of the rebellion. But they knew something was happening. In the Grand Council chamber, Commander Rax of the Araxians paced angrily before the High Council. Unusual ship movements near the Pelteri system. Unexplained technological advancements on 3 Tier 4 worlds. And these humans continue to refuse classification. His metallic exoskeleton clicked with each agitated step. "We must take military action now." High Counselor Moore raised his staff for silence. "Council protocols are clear. Military action requires unanimous approval." "Then I request a formal vote," Commander Rax demanded. Before the vote could take place, a junior Vexilian aide rushed into the chamber, a serious breach of protocol that caused immediate uproar. "Forgive me, counselors," the aide gasped, "but we've detected a human vessel using impossible speed. It crossed the Araxian defense perimeter before our sensors could track it." The chamber erupted in chaos. High technologist Vril accessed the sensor data and projected it for all to see. The human ship moved in ways that defied Council physics. They've achieved in months what took us centuries, Vril whispered to his fellow Korath. The Council's panic turned to outrage when a second crisis emerged. Security Chief Tarn burst into the chamber. The restricted archives have been breached, he announced. Internal documents have been copied and transmitted. What documents? Demanded High Counselor Moore. The strategic resource plans, Tarn replied reluctantly, including the Earth assessment. A heavy silence fell over the chamber. Every council member knew what those documents contained, detailed plans to eventually strip mine Earth for its rare minerals and biological diversity, once humans had been properly subjugated. Who received these documents? Moore asked quietly. We don't know, Tarn admitted. The transmission used an undetectable frequency. Within days, the documents spread throughout the galaxy. Species that had accepted council rule for millennia began to question the system. The carefully maintained hierarchy of knowledge and power began to crack. On a small monitoring station near the edge of council space, 2 Araxian soldiers watched with growing concern as their screens showed increasing communication between formerly isolated worlds. Something is happening, one said to the other. Something the council can't control. The other soldier nodded grimly. And it all began when humans refused to compromise. The unauthorized Araxian battle group dropped out of hyperspace just beyond Earth's moon. Commander Rax had decided to act without council approval, convinced a display of military might would force human compliance. Fire warning shots across their defensive line, ordered Rax. What followed shocked the Araxian commander. Admiral Park's defense fleet employed tactics never before seen in galactic warfare, unpredictable maneuver patterns, decoy signals, and adaptive shield frequencies that rendered Araxian targeting systems useless. After sustaining heavy damage, Rax ordered a retreat. The failed assault created immediate fractures in Council unity. The Araxians acted without authorization, insisted the Vixilian spokesperson to the gathered press of 17 species, but the damage was done. At an emergency session of the Galactic Assembly, a rarely convened body including all council members, Captain Kang presented evidence of centuries of council corruption and resource exploitation. The hierarchy doesn't exist to maintain order, she declared. It exists to enrich the founding species at everyone else's expense. Before the session ended, representatives from 17 species formally announced their withdrawal from council oversight. The Grand Chamber erupted in chaos as accusations flew between the founding members. The Earth Defense Fleet had been on high alert for weeks. Admiral Park's new command center inside Lunar Base Alpha hummed with activity as officers monitored the far reaches of the solar system. Sir, multiple hyperspace signatures detected near Jupiter's orbit, called out Lieutenant Yoon from his station. Admiral Park straightened. How many vessels? 7 large ships, sir. Araxian design. Park's expression remained calm, but his eyes hardened. Activate Defense Protocol Nova. Alert all ships. Earth's fleet of 30 smaller vessels moved into formation. Unlike the massive Araxian warships, human vessels were quick and agile, incorporating technologies shared by their new allies. On the lead Araxian battleship, Commander Rax surveyed the human defenses with disdain. Primitive vessels, he scoffed. They have no concept of true military power. His exoskeleton clicked as he gestured toward Earth. Fire warning shots across their defensive line. Bright energy beams cut through space, deliberately missing the human ships but demonstrating Araxian firepower. They will surrender now, Rax declared confidently. Instead, the human fleet broke formation, scattering in seemingly random patterns. Before Rax could issue new orders, his tactical officer shouted in alarm. Commander, we're getting multiple target readings, hundreds of them. Impossible, Rax snarled. There are only 30 ships. The readings keep shifting. Our targeting systems can't lock on. Human ships darted between the larger Araxian vessels, releasing small devices that projected false sensor readings and interfered with Araxian communications. Fire at will, Rax ordered in frustration. The Araxian ships fired powerful weapons, but hit nothing. Meanwhile, the human vessels struck with precision, targeting vulnerable spots on the Araxian hulls, spots identified from the technical data shared by Council defectors. Inside his ship, Admiral Park directed the battle with calm efficiency. Group 2, deploy the Pelteri shield disruptors. Group 3, target their propulsion systems. The smaller human vessels moved like dancers in a choreographed performance. The Araxian weapons, designed to fight conventional battles against known enemies, proved useless against the hybrid technologies and unpredictable tactics. After 20 minutes, 3 Araxian ships had sustained critical damage. Commander Rax stared at the tactical display in disbelief as warning lights flashed across his vessel's systems. "Retreat," he ordered, his voice hollow with shock. "Return to Council space immediately." As the damaged Araxian fleet limped away, cheers erupted throughout Earth's ships and bases. But Admiral Park did not join the celebration. "This isn't over," he told his officers. "The Council won't let this stand." He was right. News of the failed Araxian assault spread rapidly through Council space and beyond. The story grew with each telling. How humans, a species that should have been Tier 3, had defeated the Council's premier military force. In the Council chambers, pandemonium reigned. The Araxians acted without authorization. The Vexillian spokesperson insisted to reporters from 17 species. This was not a Council-approved action. But the damage was done. Trust in Council leadership crumbled further. High Counselor Moore summoned Commander Rax for questioning. "You have damaged the Council's reputation beyond measure," Moore said, his scales darkening with anger. "I acted to preserve the order we have maintained for millennia." Rax defended himself. "While you debated, humans spread dissent throughout our territories. And now your failure has accelerated that dissent." The emergency session of the Galactic Assembly was called 3 days later. This rarely used body included representatives from all species, not just the ruling council members. It had not been convened in over 2,000 years. The massive chamber on the council's central space station filled with delegates from hundreds of worlds. At the center stood Captain Kang, invited to speak on behalf of Earth. "The Council claims to bring order and progress," she began, her voice carrying to all corners of the chamber. "But we have discovered the truth." Large screens displayed the leaked Council documents, detailed plans showing how the ruling species systematically exploited lower-tier worlds. "The Tory were held at Tier 5 for 8 centuries," Captain Kang continued, "not because they lacked advancement, but because their world contains 90% of the galaxy's supply of rare isotopes needed for Council technology." Murmurs spread through the chamber as Captain Kang presented case after case of deliberate suppression. "The hierarchy doesn't exist to maintain order," she declared. "It exists to enrich the founding species at everyone else's expense." High Counselor Moore rose to respond, but before he could speak, the delegate from the Nithran world stood. "The Nithran Alliance formally withdraws from Council oversight," the delegate announced. A moment of shocked silence followed. Then the Pelteri delegate stood. "The Pelteri Confederation withdraws from Council authority." One by one, representatives from 15 more species stood and made similar declarations. The chamber erupted in chaos as accusations flew between the Council founding members. "You promised the Araxians would handle this human problem," shouted the Korath delegate at Moore. "Your greed has destroyed 12,000 years of order." The Vexillian representative countered. As the council members turned on each other, Captain Kang quietly left the chamber. In a private communication room, she contacted Admiral Park. "Phase 4 is complete," she reported. "The council is fracturing from within." Admiral Park nodded solemnly. "Then we move to the final phase. The new era begins now." 6 months after the failed Araxian assault, Earth hosted the first summit of what would become known as the Stellar Accord. Unlike the Council's imposing architecture designed to intimidate lesser species, The meeting took place in a circular chamber where all representatives sat at equal height. Admiral Park, now serving as Earth's first galactic ambassador, outlined the Accord's principles: mutual defense, knowledge exchange without restriction, and respect for sovereign development paths. One by one, former council members pledged their support. The Nithrans brought their expertise in biological sciences, the Peltari shared their advanced theoretical mathematics, and humans contributed their innovative approach to quantum mechanics. The remnants of the council, now reduced to less than half its former membership, found themselves forced to negotiate with humanity as equals, something unimaginable just a year earlier. Earth became a diplomatic hub where species met without hierarchical constraints. Academic and cultural exchanges flourished as artificial barriers fell away. On the first anniversary of the Stellar Accord's formation, a small council delegation arrived at Earth's orbital diplomatic station. Leading them was High Counselor Moore of the Korath, once among humanity's most vocal critics. Admiral Park and Secretary Lee received them in the Accord's chamber. "We have come," began Moore with visible difficulty, "to formally request the Korath's membership in the Stellar Accord." Secretary Lee smiled. "The Accord welcomes all who accept its principles of equality and cooperation." As the former council representative signed the accession document, Admiral Park leaned toward his old friend Captain Kang and whispered, "Who would have thought our greatest weapon would be our stubborn refusal to compromise on what matters most?" The new meeting chamber on Earth's orbital station shone with natural light. Its crystal dome allowed the stars to be visible from every seat. Unlike the dark, imposing council chambers, this room had been designed to make all feel welcome. Admiral Park stood at the center, his formal uniform bearing a new symbol, a circle of stars representing the founding members of the Stellar Accord. "We gather today not as rulers and subjects," Park began, looking at the 38 representatives seated in the circular arrangement, "but as equals with different gifts to share." The Nithran representative, with his translucent skin showing his 2 beating hearts, nodded in agreement. Beside him sat delegates from worlds that had been classified as low as Tier 6 under the old system. "The principles of the Accord are simple," Park continued. "First, mutual defense. An attack on one is an attack on all. Second, knowledge exchange without restriction. No more artificial barriers to progress. Third, respect for each species' sovereign development path." When he finished speaking, the chamber remained silent for a moment. Then the Peltari delegate stood. "For 300 years, the Council kept us from reaching our potential," the silver-skinned being said. "They took our discoveries and gave us scraps in return. Today, we freely offer our advancements in theoretical mathematics to all Accord members." One by one, representatives rose to pledge resources, knowledge, and support. The Nithrans shared their biological sciences. The aquatic Luth offered their phase technology. Each contribution built upon the others, creating a wave of rapid advancement. Dr. Song, now heading Earth's new Galactic Science Division, worked with teams of mixed species. Together, they created technologies that none could have developed alone. "The first interspecies research colony on Mars will be completed next month," he reported to Secretary Lee. "Scientists from 12 worlds will work there without restrictions." Lee nodded approvingly. "And the Council? They've lost more members this week. They're down to less than half their original size." The Council's decline happened faster than anyone predicted. Without the resources of their former subject worlds, the founding species struggled to maintain their dominance. Trade routes changed. Power shifted. 6 months after the Accord's formation, a Vexilian trade delegation arrived on Earth, seeking new agreements. Ambassador Teller, who had once delivered the Council's demands, now came to request fair trade terms. "The winds have changed," Teller admitted to Admiral Park during private discussions. "Many on the Council still refuse to see it." "And you?" Park asked. "I see reality," Teller replied simply. "The old ways are ending." As Earth grew into its role as the Accord's center, human culture and art spread throughout allied worlds. In return, alien philosophies and perspectives enriched human thinking. Museums displayed art from 100 worlds. Schools taught children about their galactic neighbors. The isolation that had defined humanity ended, replaced by a rich tapestry of interspecies cooperation. Yet challenges remained. Some Council loyalists resisted the new order. Small skirmishes erupted at the borders between Accord and Council space, but each time, the Accord's joint defense forces prevailed using their combined technologies and tactics. On the first anniversary of the Accord's formation, a message arrived that shocked even Admiral Park. A small Council delegation requested permission to visit Earth on a diplomatic mission. They refused to say more, Captain Kang reported. But their lead delegate is High Counselor Moore himself. The same Moore who called us primitives, Park mused. Allow them to dock. Let's hear what they have to say. The Council ship that arrived was noticeably less impressive than it would have been a year earlier. Its once gleaming hull showed signs of hasty repairs. The delegation that emerged was small, just Moore and 3 advisors. In the Accord's circular chamber, Admiral Park and Secretary Lee received them as equals. Moore's scales had dulled from their once vibrant color, and his ceremonial staff seemed heavier in his grip. "We have come," began Moore with visible difficulty, "to formally request the Korath's membership in the Stellar Accord." A murmur ran through the chamber. The Korath had been founding members of the Council, rulers of countless worlds for millennia. "The Council is failing," Moore continued bluntly. "What you started by refusing classification has become a tide we cannot stem. My people choose to adapt rather than fade." Secretary Lee stepped forward. "The Accord welcomes all who accept its principles of equality and cooperation. Even former oppressors," asked a Nithran delegate from the circle. "Especially former oppressors who have learned better ways," Lee replied firmly. As Moore signed the accession document that would bring his species into the Accord as equals, not rulers, Admiral Park leaned toward Captain Kang. "Who would have thought," he whispered, "our greatest weapon would be our stubborn refusal to compromise on what matters most?" Captain Kang smiled. "Perhaps that's always been humanity's greatest strength." Outside the station's windows, Earth turned slowly below them. One world among many in a galaxy being reborn through cooperation rather than control. The stars beyond seemed brighter somehow, as if reflecting the new future taking shape. The end.